let the games begin.
Start the game already!
What have you got there?
Give you three guesses, and the first two don't count.
Well, it's some sort of
Swarming.
wine.
Yeah, I had a housewarming a couple of days ago, and I realized, having mentioned last week that I don't like vodka, and that's what I've got. Oh my God, people brought bottles of wine, so I will try some of this.
Are you a wine guy?
Um, Not hugely, no. I tend to prefer dry reds, but I have Bar Dog Chardonnay. I don't know. It's a 2020. Apparently, it was a very good year. I don't know. I stayed home the whole year. What have you got?
I am drinking. I went shopping at Walmart, so their cider selection tends to be limited. It's just Strongbow Gold.
Oh, there you go. Nice and simple. And try and not get through the whole bottle. That's the goal.
So this is a dumb question.
I love dumb questions.
In the world of wine, what does "it was a good year" mean?
Okay. So, full disclosure here, this is going to be a very ignorant response. Uh, it has to do with the harvest of grapes. I don't think it really matters anymore so much, just because,
Mhm.
for example, in the Quinty area, I love this, and this happens pretty much everywhere in Canada that they make wine. They don't actually use most of the wine is not made from their own grapes.
Nope.
They come from Australia and California. But there was a time when almost all of the wine in the world was produced in like sort of France and Spain, I
Mhm.
think, or that region of the world. And if they had a bad harvest, mm, I think they were also too like we have a lot better handle on the chemistry of things now,
Mhm.
so things are much more consistent. But back in the day, it was, well, let's try something new. Ooh, that didn't work out. So a
Mhm.
good year is when they did an experiment and it worked. I don't know. It has this is something that amuses me, and this is a bit of trivia that I know to be true. That if you put a wine expert to the test and you pair them up against someone who is literally like at random
Mhm.
uh, telling you about the wine, the at random person is more likely to be correct.
Mhm.
Wine experts are full of shit. So, cheers.
Cheers. So what have you been up
That's
to this week?
acceptable. Not a ton. Let's see. When did we last record? Was it yesterday? The day before yesterday? So,
No, it was
uh,
like Wednesday last week, I think.
was it? Oh my God, it's been almost a week.
Yeah.
Okay, so I went golfing on Friday, and spectacular things happened, but I'll bring that up at the end. Uh, I installed lights in my kitchen. When we moved in, the kitchen was the one area of the house really where we sort of earmarked, this is not ideal. It's okay. I mean, it's a functional kitchen. It's fine. Nothing wrong with it. But there was a single 3-pot track light above the sink and no other lights in the kitchen. So I
Now, I can tell this went well because we were going to record last night and you were basically, dude, I can't.
Yeah,
I need to like drink somebody's blood.
that was actually a Baldur's Gate reference.
Yes.
But yeah, so it's over the sink. So basically, I have to get up on a step ladder over the sink, reaching, holding things up while I'm trying to screw in light things. So, and it was a bit of a wonky setup because what I've done is the switch that controls the light over the sink. I actually wired in two plugs so that I can run LED. What would you call? They're like fluorescent bulbs, the long bulbs,
Yeah.
but they're LEDs. So they're super bright, which is nice, and I use almost no power. But you know, that's more stuff than really should fit into a light fixture. So it was a bit of a struggle. And it was over my head, and it took me a couple of hours. So I was exhausted. And I really wanted to play Baldur's Gate 3.
We'll get to that later. I'm excited
Yes.
that you're playing.
Yeah.
But before we do, you were excited about something today. So excited that you interrupted my workday in a good way to be like, dude, we got to talk about this right now.
Yeah. So I had an idea. And the idea is for something like a sort of like a series, a short thing outside of the podcast. But I thought it would be neat if we introduced it in the podcast, and then sort of like a, I don't know, a soft launch. What do you call those things when there's a like a pilot that happens inside of another show for its own spinoff? Soft. It's like a soft reboot,
Mhm.
soft pilot, soft launch, whatever. Anyway, so the idea is for a series, and tentatively titled Nerd Contretemps, which more or less means contest or argument. And it works like this. There is some kind of a contest where we have to go and do something outside of the podcast, record ourselves doing it, whatever it is, and then each post a video separately, and our audience will judge who won. So, Ian, I'm counting on you. Uh, right. So, a suggestion to start is that we each come up with two elements that need to be included, and then we do a kind of a read in to the beginning of a session one, or campaign start, or like a one shot or whatever. The little blurb that the DM does at the beginning. You
Mhm.
find yourselves in an inn, or you have spent your entire youth at the at Candlekeep Castle Library, whatever, and now Gorion, your mentor, has told you with no warning to pack up your stuff and get ready to be accosted outside of the gates. Something like
See,
that.
a tabletop kind of preamble would be difficult for me because I usually do that differently, right? Like especially for one shots or just something like that. I'll do like a mission brief in advance,
Okay.
and then I'll just quickly summarize it.
Okay.
Hmm.
Well, read the mission
Okay.
brief then.
All right. So you want to do a tabletop one shot introduction.
Sure.
I think we need to establish a theme so that the theme isn't the deciding factor. We need to set some boundaries.
Okay. All right. I mean, yeah, the rules of this are, listen, the rules are written in, well, they're not written down at all. So we'll make them up as we go. And the each of us two elements thing was just off the cuff. We need to set ground rules, and whatever it is, it just needs to not be like all one person's idea for how to set it up, because that wouldn't be fair.
Okay. Knowing that you're planning a cyberpunk one shot and that you've been thinking about this, I think I want to avoid that.
Okay.
How about my contribution will be that it's going to be noir detective.
Ooh. Okay. All right. Okay.
Now augment that somehow. Give me something else to flesh that out and we'll run
Okay.
with it.
Okay. Um, the Okay, there are no humans in the world. All of the actors, characters, whatever, are anthropomorphic animals of some kind.
Okay. So noir detective, anthropomorphic animal,
This is
one
the
shot
internet.
introduction.
This is the internet, though, so they're definitely furries.
Oh, well, that went without saying.
Yeah, yeah,
I
but I
mean,
said it.
this isn't fucking Disney.
Hmm.
This is Dungeons and Dragons. If it isn't horny, what are we even doing?
I mean, yeah, a little bit. So much of Dungeons and Dragons is peopled by young testosterone-filled males who have actually never known the touch of a woman. And before anyone thinks that I'm throwing stones, I'm just burying myself under them. 'Cause honestly, until I met my wife, I assumed that I was gonna be celibate for the rest of my life. Special lady, my wife.
So, all right, we want to record this.
Yeah. It's a read-in of some kind.
Do we want to set a time limit? 180 seconds? We can't do it like 60 seconds is a short, but 60 seconds isn't going to be enough for
Too
this.
short. It's gotta be reasonably short. I mean, I'm thinking like 2 minutes. Uh,
Let's go
well,
3.
think okay, 3 is fine. I mean, 3 is a fairly long introduction to this kind of thing. Now, can you imagine sitting around a table with like 5 other people and the DM's reading something for like 3.5 minutes? You're like, I just want to play the game, man. So yeah, I think 3 minutes is an upper limit is fine.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, hmm,
Somebody should write this down.
whatever. It's recorded. Just listen to
Oh
our
my
own
god, I'm not
podcast.
listening to this back. I need a point formed list.
All right, we'll do that. We'll set a deadline of next weekend.
Okay, like a week from this weekend. This is the long weekend coming up, right?
Mm. Do you have long weekend plans?
Um, let's see. Nope, I don't think so. Anyway, I don't know. My wife will tell me if I have plans. I am unaware of any plans at this time.
All right. Tentatively, then, let's aim to have this for the next time we record.
Okay.
Now, a reminder to anyone listening, we will be recording a second episode tonight. So, 2 episodes from now, we should be following this up.
Yeah. I mean, it'll just show up on the YouTube channel. One would hope.
Well, we gotta, hey, subscribe so you don't miss it and
That's right. Ring the bell.
all
Smash
that
that like button.
shit.
Yeah,
All
we're
right.
on the road to 2 million subscribers. It's a long road. I think the other end of it is actually Damascus.
So, I need help with
Uh-oh.
something. I'm trying to figure out what to do with this video game segment. I'm trying to figure out what to call it. We're doing this retro replay thing that lasted half of an episode.
Long enough to load up a single game and go, nope.
Nope. And I've called it like 3 or 4 different things now, just in summarizing the show notes and doing timestamps and chapters. Um, I'm playing with the idea. It just sounds so cheesy, so I kind of hate it, but it goes well with the little stinger we did up, the gaming grandpa gamer stories or something like that. But I don't know.
Grumpy old gamers.
Oh, well, derp. We have a Discord channel with that name that we've been doing shit on for years. So
Yeah.
I don't know why I didn't think to poach that.
You know what? It only popped into my head when you said Grandpa Gamers out loud.
Grumpy old gamers it is. All right.
Oh,
Well, I'm excited for this week's Grumpy Old Gamers.
I used to be an adventurer like you.
Stay a while and listen.
I am excited because Telson has started playing Baldur's Gate 3.
I have. I've started playing Baldur's Gate 3, and I've started playing Baldur's Gate 3 again, and I've started playing Baldur's Gate 3 again, and I've started playing Baldur's Gate 3 again. I have made it as far as the Druid encampment 6 times.
Why?
Well, I have this condition, you see, it's called alt-itis. As soon as I get somewhere, anywhere in the game, because I started off with a gnome bard, um, and I don't know, I'm not sure I even made it off the ship with the gnome bard because it just didn't. I wasn't feeling it. Like I
Mhm.
literally just, I don't know. I was like, do I? Yeah, I don't identify with this character at all. And then I thought I'd kind of like to play I don't know, like a tiefling warlock or something like this. And I'd get to the character generation screen. I don't like the way that any of the races look except the elves.
Hmm.
I got a little distance with an elven wizard, and basically until I met Gale, which I mean, this is no spoilers. This happens like 3.5 minutes into the game, and I thought, well, this is silly. Don't need to have two wizards in the group. All right, I'll try something else. I'm
So
currently on an elven ranger, and I think that one's got legs because you know,
so
I
having learned that lesson, did you at least look to see what companion characters you're going to have so you can kind of work around that?
no, a little bit,
Okay.
only just barely. I'm probably gonna stick with what I've done is I've replaced Asterion with the ranger. So I have the Githyanki chick L'Oreal,
Lae'zel.
Lae'zel, thank you.
Hmm.
Um, and Shadowheart, which I'm pretty sure, based on the little bit of reading that I've done, and I've tried to avoid spoilers, that she's sort of integral to the plot, which sort of makes sense, right? She's the first companion you meet that you identify with a little bit, and then Gale, because I find him vastly amusing. Like he does all of the sort of telltale. I'm a charismatic bard. Let me tell you about a thing with a charisma of 10, which I just absolutely love. Yeah. So I one of the things that I have some complaints about the game, and they're slightly different from the complaints that you had about the game. But I would like to echo your sentiments that this does feel very much like Dungeons and Dragons. Uh, the number of options that are available for doing that, and obviously I haven't gotten very far in the game, right? I mean, I've done the little sort of ruined keep tomb thing at the beginning several times, and I've gone into it a different way every time. Uh, So that's really impressive. The only here's a minor gripe that isn't really even a complaint. It's just oh gosh, I wish they had done this. I wish that they had let the voice or had the voice actors actually voice your dialogue. I understand why they didn't. It would be ruinously expensive, but it's a little bit immersion breaking when you click on a dialogue response and your character says nothing, but then the NPC is fully voiced. Minor gripe.
I'm on the fence about that. If it weren't a Dungeons and Dragons game, I think I would agree with you. But that's supposed to be your voice.
Yeah, but your
And
character does say things like, "I hope there's no traps," and
yeah, subtle cues and stuff like that. But I don't think it's enough to feel like you're having your own character dictated and determined for you.
I don't think that I don't think it's really detrimental. It's something that I would
Hmm.
really enjoy having in the game.
Yeah.
If it did exist, it would have to be a toggle. Like you got to be allowed to turn it off.
So I have just backing up a couple of questions because you already approach this game very, very differently from what I did.
Oh,
Now, I knew I would want to because I read a little bit. Like I tried to avoid spoilers. I didn't play early access at all. I bought it like the day before or 2 days before it was releasing, so that I had it. I could start downloading day one. I didn't need to really worry about it, and I was told that you were getting for pre-releases upgrades to the digital deluxe or whatever. And you know what? I'm going to buy it in a day or two anyway. So I did it. But I knew I was going to be playing through it multiple times. So what I did for my first character is basically roll a D&D character that I've already played to see how
uh
that
oh,
experience
Dex.
hangs up. I rolled Dex
Okay.
right down to the inefficient combat. And you know what? It's actually kind of really fun. So I played a dual wielding Dex fighter, uh, battle master with dual wielder feat in the campaign that Telson was running, where we went through Curse of Strahd and did a bunch of stuff afterwards. And not ideal.
Those are
I
the
had
most fun
some
characters, though.
I had some insane absolutely insane burst damage.
Did you do the dip into rogue?
No,
Okay.
no, I didn't do the dip into rogue. I stuck with it. I, if I'd have replayed decks, I might not have done the dip into rogue. I essentially did it narratively speaking to tie
Yeah.
into sort of the Lena Rogue backstory. I wrote a little short story to kind of go along with it. Um, with the idea that I wanted the sneak attack dice just to give me a little bit of extra sustained damage. Because the one thing playing the Battle Master, regardless of whether you're playing it optimally or not, is like you've got control over a lot of burst, and then if you're not getting your short rests, all of a sudden you're just like whack,
Yeah.
you know.
I hit it with my sword. I hit it with my sword. I'm going to go get a Mountain Dew. When my turn comes up, I hit it with a sword.
But that's not a problem in this game for a couple of reasons. One, playing it single player, you're playing all of your characters.
Yeah.
So you get enough variety just in party composition and makeup with your different companions. But also, you get so many items. Like the amount of loot in the game is unlike any D&D game that I've ever played. So I've always got like scrolls and miscellaneous things that I can do, even if I'm,
Throwing. Oh my God,
yeah,
throwing. Shove is overpowered.
I've, I'm going to try not to spoil anything here, but as you get into later in Act 2, depending on how it pans out, you're having to fight a guy who you're basically on a platform with decreased gravity.
Oh,
You've just been hopping around from like floaty platform to floaty platform. And you get onto this platform in the center. There's no way to position your crew properly. That's one thing that is a little bit immersion breaking, especially if you have a tough time in combat, where it's like, well, I have a tough time because I just happen to engage in a conversation or something with my party members at the edge of something. And one thing about I've been playing on the middle normal difficulty,
yep.
and even at that difficulty, the one thing I'm impressed with, but was unprepared for, was the challenge of having AI that would look at my position and just be like, "Oh, there's you. There's an edge. There's lava. Boop,
Push.
shove."
Yep. The one complaint I have about shove is that because it's a bonus action, your opponents use it to wake up sleeping uh, allies. So if you cast sleep, it's like, oh, I put them all to sleep. It's no problem. And three people go shove. Well, now there's
Mhm.
nobody asleep anymore.
Um, so back to that fight on that floaty platform. Not only was I positioned poorly, where even with good initiative rolls, like I was losing two or three party members in the first round before I had an opportunity to act.
Oh, wow.
Because as combat starts, the guy spawns like 20 ads, and you really don't have anywhere you can go. And I got to the point with my party makeup that I ended up cheesing the fight. Like I just got my ass handed to me like three or four times. And then I didn't engage him in conversation. I used polymorph on the guy, turned into a sheep. I walked over, I picked him up, threw him over the edge.
That's fair.
Encounter over.
That's fair. That's what it's for. That's one of the things that I love about the game, though, is that there's just
Mhm.
so many ways to do things. I especially love grease, torch, and then just stand at the edge in a doorway. And as they come through the doorway, you shove them back into the fire,
Mhm.
which I just makes so much sense.
Oh, it does. And they I know I said it when I was talking about Baldur's Gate before, but that they took the time to provide reward and meaning for a lot of those mechanics that you would not think would even make it into a video game version of D&D.
Yeah. Disguise self.
Yeah.
Got to get through a hole. Boom, you're a different shape. Go through the hole. Yeah.
And,
It's
I'm 55 hours in, I think, now in my playthrough. And I've realized, like, I was taking my time. I wasn't rushing through the main storyline at all. I was trying to take
mm,
care of any side stuff I had, doing my best to talk to any NPC that just had a name, right? Like, you'll
that's a
walk into
lot of
places.
NPCs.
Yeah, you'll walk into places where, you're in a bar and it's like patron, guest, citizen, stuff like that. And then you see NPCs with names, and not every one of them has something for you to do, but if you don't talk to them, sometimes you miss important things.
Yes.
Important things related to being able to keep your companion characters and stuff. So you're rewarded for that. But there's an entire aspect of the game that I see people having fun with online that I haven't even touched. And that's the speak with animals um entire experience.
There's a fair bit. I mean, all of the animals talk. It's
Hmm.
um it's fairly impressive. Yeah, well, that's one of the things behind the ranger is that there was times when I almost was talking with animals, and it's like there's an interaction here that I want to be part of. So yeah, it's good. It's really good. So, two complaints.
Okay.
So the control scheme was a little bit of a it was a little bit of a pain at first. And when I stopped looking at it like a video game and started looking at it like D&D, it became much less of an issue.
Hmm.
Because at that point, I started flying the camera around. I swapped the controls around a little bit so that WAS and D turns the camera and moves it forward and backward, and Q and E strafes.
Hmm.
So basically, I just like I fly the camera around to where I want to go, and then I click on a thing, and then I double click on myself to watch as I walk through it.
Hmm.
Um, it's still a little bit awkward at times. I find that the camera has a little bit of roll as you like when you get away from yourself, and it's like you're looking at everything sort of on a like through a Dutch angle camera.
Hmm.
It's not a problem. It's just a this isn't quite right, and it's bothersome.
Yeah,
The
it's particularly annoying as you're working through areas that have any sort of verticality, like buildings with multiple stories and stuff, and the camera starts like, unless it's locked on a character, it's bobbing up and down and clipping through things, and
I think
it's
yeah, I mean it's a challenge to make that work, and I think they did a pretty good job. So it's not a major issue. It's just like, this is not ideal.
mhm,
I have actually been using the tactical camera a bit.
mhm.
I'll switch in and out of that. The one thing that makes me absolutely angry is the lack of an auto pause, or stay in turn based if someone in your party is taking ongoing damage from combat. There was one combat that I redid 4 times, not because I screwed it up. Well, the first time was because I screwed it up, but most of the time I was restarting it because uh, a character was on fire. Combat ends, and before I can click on somebody to get over there and put them out, they die.
Mhm.
And I know I can bring them back, and there's lots of money in the game, and I can do that, but it's just so frustrating. It's like I did the thing that was supposed to be right. Just let me stay in turn based so that I can heal them so they survive. Because they're literally like it's 2 hit points. I need to heal them one time or do a medicine check or whatever, throw water on them, and we'll be fine.
I haven't run into that issue too much. Um, have you looked through the menus?
What do you mean?
The gameplay settings in the options
Yeah,
menus?
there's no auto pause that I can see. The other thing that really frustrates me is occasionally conversation will start with the wrong character selected, right? And it's like, hey, I've got somebody with a super high charisma. The fighter's talking to the person I need to persuade. Well, great.
So there's another part of the game that I've found that I've approached differently. I haven't actively chosen the optimal character when having conversations. I've tried to mostly have conversations as
Yes.
myself.
Yes, and me too. And that's the problem that I have is especially when I was doing the playthrough with the bard, or I said
Mhm.
playthrough, when I was doing the introductory couple of encounters with the bard, it was like, hey, the bard's got all of these social skills. I'm going to use the, but why are they talking to the Gith? Like nobody likes Gith, and she's abrasive. Like no, let me do the talking. Uh, I find myself this is a strange thing though. Like the acting in the game is so good. I find myself trying really hard to seek the approval of the Githyanki fighter, and
Mhm.
you're not gonna get it, right? Yeah, I
Mm,
mean you could, you might. I mean that's there's definitely sort of there's a lot of things, there's a lot of breadcrumbs that are trailed in the first little bit that I can see are setups for payoffs, and
mhm.
if they pay off even some of them, then it's a great game. But it's funny because it's like, no, she's abrasive. I shouldn't like her. Why do I like her so much?
Because she's
I
abrasive. Because she's real, That's
that's
one of
true.
the things that I've never really noticed until I see something like this. Like, I think the Mass Effect games, and you have, like, your companions, and I love me some Mass Effect. And your companions are some of them,
Cardboard.
especially in the second game, are like, if there was an alignment, they would vary into the evil side. A couple of the
Mm.
characters in Mass Effect 2, but they're generally likable, unless they're the character that's meant to not be likable. And they don't try to make them unlikable. They're that annoying kind of person.
Oh yeah,
Yeah. Like, not intentionally annoying. You're just like, oh fuck, dude, you're so whiny.
yeah. There's definitely that. Like there's some you can tell that there's some attention been paid to actually giving the NPCs, all of them, a personality and a
Hmm.
motivation, and it's reasonably consistent.
And they all have really unique personalities, but unique sort of ways of trying to pull you in different directions. Even if it's not, hey, I'm trying to make you do something bad or I'm trying to make you do something good. Like, it's not a binary thing. And particularly if you're trying to be careful about weaving your way through conversation so that you're trying to
Getting
keep
approval.
conversation natural, but you're also trying to at least keep them reasonably happy with you. You find yourself not conceding and saying things you wouldn't say, at least in my case, things that I wouldn't say, but you're sort of taking this people management simulator type approach to playing these games.
Yes. Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I would like to actually touch on a speaking of you sort of uniqueness. I don't think it's any spoilers to say that Asterion is a vampire. Like you meet him, he's got sharp teeth. He has like tooth marks in his neck. He's very pale. Um,
Just so that we don't have to be guarded at all. And I'm not going to spoil much because you're not very far into the game, but if you don't want spoilers for the game, spoilers.
spoilers.
Skip to the next section.
Yeah, I mean, I can't spoil very much because I've literally like I have not gotten farther than I have seen in the gameplay trailers on YouTube when it was still in beta. Um, but I made a comment to you on Discord a couple of days ago as I first started playing, and it was normally I play through these games as a female avatar, mostly because it's an interesting perspective that I'm not really familiar with, and I'm curious in a lot of cases how often or how well that is done. And I mean, I'm a poor judge of it to begin with, but it's a perspective that I'm never going to get in real life.
Mhm.
And I started my elven wizard was female, and I got through it. And I'm like, I got to a certain point. I'm just like, okay, I'm not the wizard is the eh, I'm not really going to play wizard. I think I might do a druid for my second playthrough, but
I
um,
will say, depending on how the things play out with companions, you do have an opportunity to actually recruit two druid companions to your party.
yeah, and that's fine. I mean, I would be it would be fun
They're a
to do an
flexible
entire
class.
yeah do an entire party of druids. But I jumped from there to a male elven bard. Uh, because bard is kind of my go-to thing for a lot of these games. And I was playing through, and I'm like, okay, I kind of enjoy this. It feels like the bard is a little bit lightweight in combat at the beginning. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's just I'm not sure that this is a great fit. But I get to the point where you're in camp and Asterion is like, sort of perched over you and it's like, oh, this is where we find out he's a vampire. And then there's this whole thing that happens, and I'm like, I'm not sure how I feel about this. Um, it was a very um it was a very intimate moment, let's just say that. And it was I don't want to say uncomfortable, but I was very much like, this is going to turn some people on and it doesn't turn me on, and I don't know how I feel about this. Yeah.
That's the one thing that I will say is kind of maybe not well paced is the whole relationship stuff.
It's a little
Like
quick.
it's a little quick. Did you haven't gone through and actually like resolved the Grove situation yet? There's a little
No.
sort of at camp situation that happens afterwards. But I went basically from trying to be friendly with everybody up until this point. Like this is not very far into the game. And at this point in time, Lae'zel's still pretty antagonistic towards me, right? Like not that her approval is swung way down. She's just abrasive.
Yep.
And naturally speaking, the courses of action that she's wanting don't really align with my particular playthrough. And after you finish the Grove situation, there's a camp thing that happens. And the way it unfolds almost depends on who you talk to first.
Oh, we got into a big fight. Let's have sex.
Okay, mild spoilers, but it isn't really spoilers. And we had sort of the preface. During this sort of camp thing that was happening, I talked to Shadowheart first, because like literally that's where I was standing beside her. And she's like, "Hey, we should have a drink, you know. I'm gonna quit being that, stuck up snob, and you seem to be all right. Let's have a drink." I agreed to have a drink after things, you know, after making my rounds. And then I go and talk to Lae'zel, and she's immediately like, "You could have known paradise, but instead you're, and I'm, what?" And then I go over and talk to Gail, and Gail's like, "You've made plans with someone else. I could have wooed you." And one of the druids that you can get is just like, I mean, I'm into it too. But hey, why don't you have fun tonight? It's just all of a sudden everybody's coming at me at once, and it's like, wow, I didn't do anything to even like in most games where you have romance stuff, like there's a certain
Oh,
amount
it's a
of
long build up.
conversational foreplay that has to happen, right? Like I wouldn't even call it flirting. It's just you're clearly directing a conversation into directions where things get more and more personal and there's an approval thing. And then once you hit that certain trigger, it's like now new conversation options open up for you.
Yes, and you have
No,
to
it was
make
like,
some.
hey, let's have a drink. Okay, I'll have a drink. I'm going to go talk to everybody else, and they're just like,
You've made your choice.
Dude, you're turning this down. What
it's
are you
it,
thinking?
it's like dating in grade 3, right? Where, you held hands that one time, so now you're bonded for life.
Now my understanding of it is that most of the characters won't have a problem with you getting into, you know, some sort of romantic fling with multiple characters. Like it isn't a you've chosen one type situation.
Right.
Now I've really only even in this first playthrough at least, I've really only had those conversations with one person and I've shut them down. The person that I really wanted to have the conversations with, I haven't been able to get there yet. Sort of central to what her story is all about, and it's sort of a neat thing. Um, do you have Karlak yet?
No.
Okay, have you seen her? No. Okay,
Nope.
she's your barbarian. Um,
Right.
just an absolutely fun, wonderful character. Such a perfect contrast to Lae'zel and Shadowheart. Like this is fun, but the problem is at the beginning of the game early on, while everybody else is making moves on you, you can't even touch her,
Mm.
or you will be set on fire.
Oh, that's perfect.
Right, and I feel like a bit of I don't know if it's locked out now because I had a drink with Shadowheart. Like it wasn't, hey, why don't you come up to my place and get
We'll
comfortable?
have a drink.
Yeah, it wasn't even that really. I mean, there was a little bit of something something in it, but it wasn't, hey, you wanna bang or what? Like, no. It wasn't that. It was like literally, you know what? You're not a complete dick. When things quiet down here, why don't you come have a drink with me? I'm like, all right. That sounds like step one and maybe an optional 16-step process to being like, yeah, maybe I'll check out this character. Nope.
You're locked
They,
in.
well, I don't think I'm locked in because like everybody else is like, hey, let's do it. You know, all of them except for the one that I kind of wanted to explore that with, just because she's like the most interesting character.
Have you met Minsk yet?
Not yet.
That's the one thing that I was reading through something and went, "Wait, what? Minsk? Really?
Yeah,
Go for the eyes, boo." Yeah.
yeah.
And it's Matt Mercer who does the voice. Yeah.
Mercer's voice in it. Jahira is also like if you've played through the other games, Jahira is an optional companion you can pick up in this. She's one of
Oh,
those
really?
druids that I was talking about too. Yeah.
Cool. But not what's his face? Her companion person. Because in the original it was Jahira and I forget her partner's
He
name.
he dies, I think, doesn't he,
He might have. I
in the
don't know.
second game?
I never played through
Anyway.
that. I have not finished Baldur's Gate 1 or Baldur's Gate 2.
Hmm.
I had more or less the same problem I'm having with Baldur's Gate 3, where it's like, ooh, I'm going to start over as this. And then eventually you get bored of doing the first 10 minutes of the game and you're like, I'm going to do something else.
So what I will say, because you're not that far yet, is that you can recruit like hirelings
Hmm.
to play. Now, I haven't really done it. It's not expensive to do. So, like, if you want to sample different classes and stuff, there's an opportunity to do it. It's like 100 gold.
Yeah, most of the reason that I wanted to do other classes was to find out how Lae'zel would react to them.
Hmm.
I started a Gith playthrough just to see, like, was she? Nope, she's just as abrasive with Gith Yankee too. So it's not your species that she has a problem with.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. It's a great game. There's a weird kind of a thing where and I've only done this in the one combat where you come upon the Druids Grove and they're being attacked by goblins You kill some goblins, they kill some goblins. The one that you kill, you can loot. It's no problem. But the ones that they killed, if you loot them, then it's thievery. But they just leave them lying there. It's like that's weird. The little loot box is red colored.
Yeah, I didn't notice that it was ones that they'd killed. I actually ran into that in the same spot, and I thought I was accidentally looting one of them
Yeah.
that had died in that encounter because there are a few of them that go down.
Nope.
Huh.
Nope. Only the very first one that happens in the cutscene. You can save the rest. You have to be extremely combat efficient, though. I got very lucky. I also did a thing where I pulled them all into the middle and greased everybody. And then as soon as the good guys were out, fire. So yeah. Grease is my favorite spell now, which is funny because it's been useless forever.
Hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of things that I would have even never thought to really pick up on a character like in a tabletop game that like don't get me wrong, by the time I had Shadowheart at a higher enough level and either Will or Gale at a high enough level to have Fireball, like I did lean on uh Fireball and Spirit Guardians quite a bit.
Yes.
Like my go-to maneuver really with Shadowheart is to get those Spirit Guardians up and then just walk around
Yeah.
like a Cuisinart trying to pick
Mhm.
off the ads with the lowest HP. Like I'll even just like, I don't care if you use any actions at this point, just keep those up, dash, just
Yep.
like dancing around the battlefield.
Yeah. Dash and Spirit Guardian's concentration. I can't remember.
Yes.
Yeah. So spiritual weapon is not,
No.
and you can move it and attack with a bonus action. So Spirit Guardians and spiritual weapon becomes a pretty combo.
Yeah,
Did
if
you
you're not
respec Shadowheart at all? Because as a
I didn't.
trickery,
I thought about it.
I did. Oh, I have.
I
I just did.
Yeah. Did you go life domain or?
Yes. Yeah. Mostly to get into heavy armor, and I was looking at it and going like, none of our trickery stuff I'm going to use. Like I don't use it.
No, the one honestly, one of the reasons I mean I like her as a character, but I keep her in my party just so that I can have the 1d4 boost on basically everything I try to
Everything.
do.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other characters you get later that can do that. So I might actually, now that I'm getting closer to the end of the game, go through a respec on her just so I have a little bit better healing and a little bit more utility.
It's not even so much for the like I say. It's just that like I thought about going war domain honestly. Just because like you could respec her into warrior too. Like you could actually reclass her as a fighter. Because their second highest stat is strength.
Yeah. Uh, there's
It'd be
some things that
weird.
happen in her story that made me feel like as much as I wanted to respec her, it didn't feel right to do it because it wouldn't have felt right with the turns her story was taking.
Yeah.
But then you hit a fork in the road with her that can go in a few different directions. And afterwards, with the way it worked out for me, it totally would feel right now.
Okay.
So I might give it a try. I'll let you know.
All right. Yeah,
Uh,
I was fiddling with a bunch of stuff actually as people were leveling up and going, "Ooh, do I take the default options or not?" And then it's, you know what? The default options make the most sense in most cases.
yeah. Anything else? Baldur's Gate 3 that you want to talk about before we get into some pod bag?
I don't think so. I think that's pretty good. I mean, I'm happy with the game. I like it. Um, yeah.
All right.
You've got mail.
Ian wrote in. I know. Shock. Fact of the matter is he actually just gives me like 8 questions that I kind of hold on to and work my way through as needed. His question this week is I really like the parting gifts section of your show a couple weeks ago. However, I hate how hungry you made me discussing meatloaf. This begs the obvious question: when are the two of you going to do a cooking episode where the two of you are in a kitchen, be it the same kitchen or virtually in your own kitchens, where you go over how to prepare perfect bacon and eggs, meatloaf, mashed potatoes, craft dinner, haggis, or whatever normal staples that humans eat?
In the same kitchen? I don't think that's going to happen anytime real soon. Your method of cooking, I think that your style of actually preparing food and mine are not necessarily um what's the word I'm looking for? Two things go together. Happens on the color wheel. Uh
Complimentary?
that's the word I was looking for.
Hmm.
That one's in the bottom of a glass of wine.
All right. So to queue up then in advance, our next, I don't know, nerd versus nerd, whatever we're calling it, we have to develop a nerd recipe of some sort that fits a certain theme. We'll figure it out after we finish the first one.
Okay. I like it. I do. I love it. I absolutely love it.
All right, and the answer to the question is in a couple weeks.
Yes. It has to be nerd food though. Got to be.
So what makes nerd food?
Nerd food is largely something that you don't have to do a lot of preparation for. I think it's what can I grab while I'm playing video games, watching a movie, or playing Dungeons and Dragons. It isn't going to have be a lot of fuss. I think also anything that has a tie-in to a specific like a theme, like Pocky, for example, is a sort of anime thing. So anything that's been featured in a an anime or a cartoon, anything that they've ever eaten on Critical Role, I'm sure is nerd food. I don't know, man.
It's a good question. Like cooking is almost like the ultimate. I don't know. I've kind of gone through this rethinking process in my life where a lot of things that like I wouldn't have considered nerdy before, I've now taken a step back and I look at them with a completely new appreciation and like a something like baking. You know, even baking versus cooking. Like baking is chemistry and like it's a science experiment every single time, and it is absolutely nerdy, especially if you're trying to come up with something unique, something that's yours and not just following the directions on a recipe, because then you
If
need to
you are
think about
following,
all of those.
even if you are following the directions on a recipe, you're still gonna like add your own personal, you know,
Mhm.
bam, kick it up a notch or whatever
Like
it happens to be.
the trend for the past 10 or 15 years of like gastro chefs and stuff that I don't know, it's all
Yeah,
pretty nerdy. I think I agree though, like if we're gonna do it, we need to do it with like a some sort of connective tissue to
nerding.
perhaps more mainstream nerd.
Hot pockets, pizza pockets are definitely anything that you can cook in a microwave in a pause between rounds of a video game. I would like to also say that, like, I was thinking as I'm saying that, and I'm reflecting back on the thing that I said now that was basically suggesting that nerds don't cook. Um, it's not necessarily that they don't cook; it's that during the game or whatever, they
Mhm.
don't want to take the time to cook. So either prepare it ahead of time or whatever. But yeah, I think that could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I think your approach where it does compliment is probably the wrong word because it's probably like two mad scientists in the same lab,
Yep.
maybe dangerous
Yeah.
is the experimental nature. I
Yeah.
went through, well, you know what it's like to not have a ton of money.
Yes, I
We've
do.
all we've all lived those, and I mean, Tanya and I raising a family, like 4 kids in one house. Groceries are expensive. And we'd run into these points usually every couple of weeks where we need to go grocery shopping, but it's like, I'm going to do it on the weekend. Let me whip up something. Let me see what's in the cupboards.
Hmm.
Kids absolutely hated it. Tanya absolutely hates it because it's usually me just like, okay, well, I've got some rice. I've got some sort of vegetable. I've got some sort of protein. I've got some sort of mash them together, season them enough that, it masks any weird shit.
And then cover it in hot sauce.
Well, uh, Tanya and the girls are not. Well, I don't want to say they're not actually. Tanya, she's funny. She's into some spicy foods, but not
Oh,
others. She's she's
complicated.
convinced. Yeah, she's complicated. I love you, honey. I know you're gonna listen to this. She's convinced me that there's more to hot than just capsaicin,
Absolutely.
right? And I know that a lot of it is like, what is it in, and how it binds to receptors and stuff like that. But like, she'll have something that is absolutely like, there's, medium, there's mild, and then there's what this is. And she's like, oh my God, this is crazy hot. But then she'll go and have certain things at certain restaurants that like I find a little bit warm. No, I like hot, hot, hot stuff. I don't usually like the taste of a lot of hot stuff. So I'm not a like throw Frank's Red Hot on everything because it just tastes like
No.
soap to me.
Well, Frank's is awful.
Most of the mainstream hot sauces are just terrible. Tabasco,
Yes.
whatever.
Anything based on vinegar is basically terrible.
We've side tangent been talking about, and I want to start dabbling with in the next month or two, making hot sauces.
There you go.
But
It's blueberries.
we've been going through a ton of blueberry stuff at work. We kind of got a pizza day that we've been doing at the office, and for the past 3 or 4 summers, I did it for a couple summers. Andrew's been doing it like every year, growing everything from Carolina Reapers to habaneros to I don't think we've gotten to the ghost pepper train yet, but I
Those are
mean growing
crazy.
them in pots, like not in any quantity, so it's usually quite limited. But he's been doing hot sauces with like blueberries and pineapple and stuff that tastes good. And I found that a lot of those peppers, like they add some heat to it, but they also ruin the taste of whatever it is. So one of the things that I want to do is whether I'm working with an extract or something like that, I want to just have like, here's the sauce that tastes good, and here's the 3 levels of heat that you can get that sauce in. And the palate doesn't change significantly from mild to like triple X. I don't know if I can pull it off. That's the goal. That's part of why I want to do this sort of experimentation.
Oh, that's interesting. I do find the different peppers have different flavors, and the one that I
Hmm.
really appreciate is the piri piri pepper, which
Hmm.
shows up in a lot of Portuguese cooking. I think it grows in Africa somewhere. Is where it's originally from.
Yeah, I did a little bit of digging into to places that sell um, either powder or just flaked, like dried
Mm,
peppers. Bajillion different brands from a bajillion different sort of international origins, and not cheap. But I don't think I need a lot of it to do what I want to do. So I'm going to
Not
experiment
for
with it a little bit.
not for experimenting. No, we actually buy the prepackaged hot sauce from Nando's, and it's good. It's tasty. It's a little bit hot, but it actually has flavor that's worth flavoring, even if it wasn't hot.
Yeah, nice. Uh, well, I guess we sort of answered Ian's question. Hey, let's wrap this episode up with some parting
And I
gifts.
show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Anybody want a peanut?
Helson?
So I had a little bit of a thing that I would talk about at the beginning, and this is a bit of a humble brag, but I broke 80 on the golf course for 18 holes in a competitive round for really the first time ever. Um, and
This is my parting gifts. I'm
right,
awesome. Bask
nope,
in my
nope,
glory.
nope, nope.
Worship me.
No, not even remotely. So I have I mean, this is a little bit of a sort of bit of a story, but the parting gift is actually a YouTube channel called the Bryan Brothers. And the reason for that, the reason I brought up the shooting 78 is that I've been sort of, getting a little bit better, getting a little bit worse at golf for the year because I just got back into it. And I was having a lot of problem with my short game with my chipping. And the credit for my 78 goes to Wesley Bryan, who is a PGA Tour pro coming back to the PGA Tour after an injury. He did because he is one of the best short game players in the world. He did a tutorial video on their channel about pitching and chipping, sort of hitting short shots with wedges, and it's really awful. Like it's the worst instructional video you've ever seen in your life. He doesn't really teach you much. He doesn't talk about how things really work or what you're supposed to do. Um, but the example is really it fit exactly what I needed. And aside from that, the golf that they play against, because it's brothers, right? It's Wesley and his brother. Oh God, George. And they're brothers. They have like this rivalry going on. There's a lot of chirping that goes back and forth. It's very entertaining. They're both very good, so it's worth watching. And the amusing thing about having broken 80, it's not the first time that I've broken 80, which is a pretty big milestone for an amateur golfer. But I went back and looked at the course because it was at Oak Hills in Sterling where I broke 80 before. And I went back and looked, and I remember it being like a long course, and it was pretty hard. And I looked at it, and it's a par 70. It's rated at 64. It has a slope of 107, which means nothing to you if you don't do handicap calculations off the course. But basically, what the slope is like a calculus calculation. It's literally a slope of a curve of as you get better, how much easier does this course get? Higher slopes mean that it's harder as you get worse. It gets really really harder. It's basically a farmer's field with some pins in it. It's 5,400 yards, which is very short. So so I've reevaluated my life, and this is now the first time that I've actually broken 80 on a golf course. So anyway, check out the Bryan Brothers. It's a great and very entertaining golf YouTube channel. I know that I bring up golf a whole bunch in these parting gifts because I started watching golf on YouTube, and it got me back into the game. So if you're interested in golf, watch the Bryan Brothers. They're pretty cool.
Well, there you go. Telson, it's been an absolute blast talking to you. Can't wait to do it again in 10 minutes or so.
10 minutes. Yeah, I'll see you then.
Hey, everybody else, thanks for listening. If you'd like to submit a question to the pod bag, or hey, send us your own parting gift, fire us an email, podbag@nerdingundertheinfluence.com. Telson would love to hear from you.
I would.
I'd love to hear from you too.